In this video, we're going to go over how to set up our phases. So let's take a look at the phases we're going to have. If we look at the page on phases for the first handout, you have an existing phase, a new construction phase 1, and a new construction phase 2. So we're going to begin by creating those phases first. So in a normal construction situation, we might have just an existing and new construction, and that is the default setup in Revit. So if we go to the Manage tab and go to Phases, we have existing and new conditions that are always there. And as a default, Revit automatically draws everything in new conditions, and then you can set things to existing in order to set up a renovation project. In this scenario, we have existing conditions. We're going to have a new construction phase 1 and then new construction phase 2. Once we hit the new construction phase 2 phase, then everything prior to it is considered an existing conditions. So we're we're actually adding a time element by adding these phases. Okay? So, so you notice we have the before and after based on whether it happens before or after each phase within the list. And I could make as many phases as I needed to. We got past and future. So this is directly related to time. So I'm going to click on the new construction phase, and I'm going to be a little bit more specific and call that new construction phase 1. And then I'm going to add after that phase new construction phase 2. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3 phases now that we can work within. Under phase filters, this is going to be something that we'll probably come back and revisit once we have a chance to see what happens to our graphics display of these phase filters. We can make some decisions about how we want them to behave. And then we have a graphics override that allows us to set line weights and line types based on how these multiple phases and filters that we set, how they appear on one sheet, how we can tell the difference, for instance, between just a hidden line and a demolished line. Is we're using, for demolished items, we're using a hidden line that's set to a thicker line weight. And over here it shows the material and the phase, an existing phase and demo phase and a new phase and a temporary phase. And these are all the scenarios that we have. So we can fiddle with these, and we can make different overridden settings for each one of these phases. The phase filters that are showing up here, show complete would be the end phase, show demo and new is an unusual one to show, but it helps to see like the demo and new are in this, if we're cutting a hole in a wall for a new door, we see the demo and the new in the same place. We have just show new, show previous, and demo is the phase that we would look at as existing conditions and what we're demoing. Show previous and new would be similar to show complete phase. And then show previous phase, it has to do with whatever phase happens just before the phase that you're looking at. It would show that previous phase based on that phase filter. That's a little bit confusing to explain and talk about without actually seeing it in action. So we're going to come back here and mess around with this stuff a little bit later. But for now, you want to set up these phases. Next, we need to set up some views that allow us to display these different phases. So we have an existing view right now, and we're going to want to create a couple more copies of these views set to different filters. So this is where it comes in handy to look at our reference over here. Okay, so this is explaining that we want to duplicate level 1 and rename it level 1 phase 1 demo. And then this is what this phasing filters are going to be set to. Then we want to duplicate it again, and we're going to call it proposed. And we're going to do the same thing with our 3D views, set up both a demo and proposed. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So for level 1, which is what we're looking at right here, I'm going to right click and duplicate the view, and I'm going to rename that view level 1. What did it say in here? Level 1 Phase 1 demo. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and go back to level 1, duplicate it again, and call this one level 1 Phase 1 proposed. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and set the filters for these. So we have in level 1 Phase 1 demo, we want to have the phase be set to existing, and we want the phase filter set to previous in demo. I'm sorry, we want the phase set to new construction Phase 1 and the phase filter set to previous in demo. Okay, so we're in this current phase, and in this phase we're showing what the previous conditions were, which were the existing conditions previous to this phase, and what we're demolishing of those previous conditions. Okay, so I know that seems a little bit confusing, but the phase here that we have listed here is the current phase that it's going to display. So if I say phase filter show previous in demo, you notice that everything disappeared when I switched this to existing, because there was no phase previous to existing. This is saying show a previous phase to existing. There wasn't one. So this has to say show new construction phase and then show the previous phase for that for existing in demo. Okay? For the level phase proposed, we want this to say phase new construction Phase 1, and we want this to say show previous and new. Okay, nothing happens yet because we haven't made any changes. So let's go ahead and start making some changes. So I'm going to go to Phase 1 demo, and according to the plans, we need to knock down some walls. And I'm going to shut off the floor system here, so I'm just going to type in VV and turn off the floor so we're not looking at that. I don't really want to see the floor pattern. Okay, so in order to indicate that something's being removed or demoed, you, under the Modify tab, you have a little sledgehammer, and you knock down walls. You click on a wall and it demolishes the wall. It also demolishes the any doors or windows that live inside of that wall. Okay, so I just demolished all these walls, and you can see that they're showing up as thick hidden lines now. If I show the line weights, is that showing the line weights? I believe the line weights are set thicker when we do a print. Now this wall, is part of it's going to be demoed, so before I try to demo it, I'm going to split the element right in the center here, and then I should be able to demolish this portion of the wall. And so we have basically we've just completed our level 1 Phase 1 demo for the portions of the wall we're completely tearing down. Now we're going to end up adding an opening in this wall over here. I think that's what's happening in the original, is we have to add some windows over here in the conference room that we're obviously going to have to figure out how to get around the columns. So we might do these instead of the way that it's shown in the example. I added the structural elements to this project, so we'll just have to kind of come up with a different configuration for those windows so that they allow room for those columns to stay in place. But when we do that, that's going to automatically put some hidden lines in this demo view. Because we've added an opening to an existing wall, it's going to automatically show the demolished lines for that. Okay? So for proposed, when we go into proposed, let me get rid of the floor again on this one. This is where we're going to add all that those groups that we made. So I'd go down here, for instance, and let's drag and drop cubicle 1 into place. And I want it to look more or less like the layout here. So let me reference the layout. So I've got that row, and then I've got this grouping here, and I've got a little table here. By the way, I had only made groups out of certain things, but you can go wild and make groups out of anything that you want to, especially if you know you're going to be using it again later on in the project. So I'm just going to take that cubicle, put it about where I think it is supposed to be, and then we'll mirror it. And then we'll take those two and I'll mirror them again. And let me see. Looks like we've got one more row of those. So mirror that over to the other side, and then we'll take and mirror that once more. Okay, so that gives us the same configuration that we have here for that row of cubicles. And it looks like it's a little bit closer to the wall in the picture. So I'm going to grab all of them and use the arrow key on my keyboard to just tap those up closer to the wall. Now I want to take this whole thing and mirror it using a draw axis line. So I'm just going to kind of randomly draw a point somewhere around here just to get those in place. And I don't like how far away they are. We'll move them up a little bit further. I think that's about right. And then we want to mirror, it looks like we only want the cubicles to go to this one here, and then we get rid of these. So we're going to get rid of these two. And I want to mirror all of these, and we'll get rid of that one once I do that. Okay, so I'm going to select all of them, hit mirror, mirror them off of that. And then I want to get rid of that cubicle, and then I've got the same configuration. Looks like we've got this positioned so that we can get around the side a little bit. So I thought this looked like that they were lined up, but there's about 2 feet of space on this side. So I'm going to grab all of the cubicles and just nudge them over far enough so we have a little bit of clearance on that side, and we'll go ahead and add a table in this area and continue to fill in the rest of the office spaces and things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll come back. Alright, we more or less have the layout pretty much the same as what's showing up in the drawing, okay, with the exception of these storefront windows, which I'm going to show you how to add right now, and then this curved wall. Okay, so let's add those elements, and then we can call this phase done. Alright, so let's make the curtain wall elements first. So if I go to the wall tool and pick storefront, I can draw in where the storefront window is going to be, and it's going to put the windows in place. The problem is we've got columns now within our windows. So I'm going to select the storefront and delete it, and we'll create storefront in these little sections here, and we'll just see how it comes out. So I'm going to create a storefront from about here to here, and then we'll do another one from here to here, and then we'll do another one from here to here. And that's fine, making those little changes. And then for this area here, we can do a storefront that goes from about 2 feet all the way to here. And this was a double door before we demoed that, and I replaced it with a 36 by 80 single flush vision door. You could make that a glass door if you'd rather, but it just doesn't want to be a double glass door. It's not enough room. And so now we just need to put this wall in here. So we go under wall, pick the wall type that we want to use, and in this case I want this to be a interior 3/8 of an inch partition. And I'm going to let the base constraint be set to level 1. I'm going to change the top constraint also to level 1 with a top offset of 4 feet. Sorry. Do I want to do it that way? Yeah, 4 feet. So that's going to allow me to draw a half wall, okay? And if we look at our picture, I want you to get that wall to look more or less like that, okay? So it doesn't have to be exact. So what I'm going to do is start off by drawing a line, and I think I want to draw it to about there, and then I'm going to switch it to an arc. I always forget which one I'm supposed to use in this scenario, and let's try that. And then I want to switch back to a line again, and it's going to show you where it's tangent. Okay, so then there's our wall configuration right there. If we want to see what this looks like in 3D, I'd have to look at a dollhouse view. So let's duplicate the view. And when we duplicate that view, I want to rename it First Floor Doll. And I want to set the view to the right phase filter. So let's get it oriented correctly here. So we want to orient view to floor plan, level 1. And I want this to show new construction phase 1, show all. So what this does is gives us a shot of the demolition and the new construction all at once, which is kind of a cool view. If I change this to show previous and new, then I'm able to see just new construction with the new windows in the conference room and the layout. Okay, so that gives you an idea of how this is going to work. So what you need to do in addition to what we did up here is we need to set up a 3D view that will allow us to show all of those different levels. So I'm going to rename this and use caps instead. Okay, so this is the first floor, and this should be called Phase 1 Demo. I'll rename this view or duplicate it and then rename the second one and call this First Floor Phase 1 Proposed. Okay. And so in this view we want to see new construction phase, previous, and demo. Okay. And then in this view we want to see new construction phase, previous, and new. So now we have the phase filters set up both in 3D and in demo conditions, so we can see what we're doing as we work, which is a great way to set it up. So, and we're going to get into learning how we can modify these, change colors and things like that, and show the phasing in a little different manner. But that's the basics. So what you're going to want to do now is go through exactly the same steps, creating a level 1 phase 2 demo, a level 1 phase 2 proposed, same thing with 3D view, first floor phase 2 demo, first floor phase 2 proposed, and then we're going to see this area here demolished and edited, but it's going to be after this phase. So all the stuff that's in this phase here will appear to be existing conditions, and none of this demo stuff is going to appear in there anymore. Because once we started this phase, the previous phase is now this one, where it looks like this. This is our existing conditions, and then we'll see a demo here, and then we'll see all the new construction in the phase 2. Okay? So have fun.